order. Ms. Humphries, will you lead the roll call?
President Osborne,
Here.
Vice President Holcomb,
Here.
Member Gresham,
Here.
Member Kazi. Here. Member Spear,
Here.
all are present.
All right, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
All right, a motion by Ms. Spear, a second by Ms. Ozzie. Please vote.
Oh, my goodness. I apologize. I have not logged in, so am doing so now. My apologies for the delay.
All right, the agenda has been adopted. Do we have a call for executive session?
Yes. So moved.
Ms. Ms. Spear
Second?
by Ms. Gresham. Please vote.
We're a little slow on the uptick, sorry.
I have lost my Robert's Rules way.
Sorry.
And if we get done with exec session quickly, then maybe we can do a couple of the other agenda items before the showcase. If that's okay with folks.
Published agendas, list what the exec session is
I don't
for.
see any reason not to.
Because this one doesn't.
All right, the motion has been approved. We are recessed while we are into executive session.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's not gonna work. So, so I think the practices sound so good that the board is ready for the presentation. So will everyone please be seated, and we'll have the kids come up front, or back there, or do you prefer?
We need to wait.
Okay, so why don't we do it from where you are? I'm going to call the meeting back to order, and then we'll let the program begin, because I'm sure you're all here to hear us do a bunch of administrative actions. So, all right, the meeting is called back to order. Dr. Guerin, will you introduce our performers, who we've already got a little tease of what's going to be coming?
I'm so excited to introduce Simus Elementary's IB students under the direction of Ms. Melissa Powers and Senior M. A. M.A. M.A.
Senior MA.
And all the special area teachers from Simus. Thank you.
So we are Madison Simus. We're an IB World School, and an IB education is one that is transformational. And at Simus, we are fostering well-rounded, caring, and globally minded students. And tonight, we're going to be showcasing what our students have been working on in all their special area classes. During our IB evaluation, they gave us really good feedback, and they told us to include our specialists more in our IB units. And so last year we started to have informances as a way for our students to perform for their peers. This year we've been able to invite parents so that they're able to perform for their parents. An informance is like a performance, except that the students will be showcasing what they're currently learning in their special area classes. And an informist allows for one class to perform at a time so that parents are able to see their child up close. And as part of our IB program, we are interested in developing the whole child. And through our transdisciplinary theme, how we express ourselves, our students are able to showcase their knowledge and their skills. They have increased confidence, self-esteem, and self-efficacy. So we invite you to enjoy our fourth graders' informants.
Welcome. We are featuring some students from each of our 6 classes at Simus. And we're going to start with a song that they've been learning in Spanish. And then we'll follow with a song they've been learning, like hot cross buns and 3/4 of music. And then we'll end with some really fun square dancing that they've been doing in PE. So we're excited to hear it. And of course, the art show is already, slideshow is already playing, so enjoy. Maybe we'll play it again.
We'll refresh it while you're.
And there is also artwork on the table back here. I think the students have been working on this.
It's all their self-portraits that are in the slideshow.
izquierda y derecha, arriba, abajo y vuelta entera. Izquierda y derecha, arriba, abajo y vuelta entera. Con las manos tic-tic, con los pies tic-tic-tac. Izquierda y derecha, arriba, abajo y vuelta entera. Izquierda y derecha, arriba, abajo y vuelta entera. Con la cabeza quitica, con los dedos quitica. Izquierda y derecha, arriba, abajo y vuelta entera. Izquierda y derecha, arriba, abajo y vuelta entera.
Now, in music classes, we're working on one for portraits and hot cross buns 100,000 different ways. So you're gonna hear a few of those ways. Cross hot, which is a and now hot cross buns and the buns are hot together at the time, creating harmony.
Yeah, well done. I don't think we've ever seen square dancing. That's awesome.
So that's our int form. It's just a little sampling of some of the things that we do as in our special areas. So,
You did.
Thank you very much. If the students would stay around, we'd like for them to join us for the pledge.
Who's your little sibling?
I'm going to call the meeting back to order. Ms. Kazi, will you please join us up here? Ms. Kazi, will you, and will all the kids, Ms. Kazi, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? So please, everyone rise. All right. Allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So clearly my classroom management skills need some work.
Teacher voice.
Yes. Why don't we just, do you guys still want to do those 2 agenda items real quick and then go back into the regular order? Just jump into regular order. It does not matter to me.
At this point, I say we just jump into the
I think all our guests are here.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All righty. Well, let me- All right. So item 5.1, presentations and recognitions. Dr. Guerin, will you introduce this item?
Absolutely. President Osborne, members of the governing board, cabinet, and staff, Ms. Anna Andrews, president of MSD38, will recognize merits and accomplishments of the following staff that received the You Make a Difference and Shining Star Award. Ms. Andrews.
Welcome.
Can I introduce her? Yeah, thank you. We're still trying to get this figured out. We're going to get it one of these days, this new format. All right, the You Make the Difference and Shining Star Awards are presented by the Madison District Classroom Teachers Association and Madison Administration to recognize the certified and classified staff who truly demonstrate Madison's vision of inspiring passion for learning and leading in an ever-changing world. And please enjoy this video of our award recipients being surprised with the news of their award and Dr. Guerin reading the speeches acknowledging their excellence. All right, and tonight's first You Make the Difference award goes to Ariane Berry. Ariane Berry is our jack of all trades at Madison Simus. Mrs. Berry began her time at Simus as a part-time technology teacher for kindergartners in 2020. Over our COVID years, she was instrumental in developing online activities that help support our students, and last year, Ariane became our tutoring coordinator and specialist. This year, we tapped into her vast knowledge of reading and have utilized her talents as a reading interventionist. In addition, when an extra section of kindergarten was added, she agreed to teach one class of kindergarten technology. She is a wonderful example of how one person's talents and flexibility can make a difference in the lives of many students and staff members on our campus. Ariane goes above and beyond her regular duties, whether she is covering a class to give a break for a teacher, working with our instructional aides on reading intervention strategies, or teaching a quick phonics lesson in a 3rd or 4th grade classroom. She willingly accepts requests to do whatever is asked. Over the past year, she has been instrumental in launching our Tier 3 reading services for students while training teachers how to provide Tier 2 in their classrooms. She collects and analyzes data and helps make sense of students' strengths and challenges, providing guidance on where to go next with students. Ariane is willing to have crucial conversations with staff as well as parents about what needs to be done to help students learn to read. These conversations have been essential in helping kids grow as readers and build their confidence. Ariane is calm and patient and has a positive demeanor that helps her encourage and motivate some of our most vulnerable students. However, that does not mean kids don't work hard with Ariane. She is frequently heard saying, "We can do hard things," while she pushes them to keep trying and rewards student efforts every day. Ariane creates relationships with students first, helping them feel comfortable and gaining their trust. She serves as an excellent role model of a growth mindset for both students and staff. One of the best qualities of Ariane is her ability to elevate the work of others. She provides thoughtful insights and asks probing questions at the right times to move conversations forward. She acknowledges the tough work that teachers and students do, but also reminds them of the importance of doing that work. We are so thankful of Ariane's work to support our students and staff at SIMUS. She is an invaluable part of our staff who absolutely make a difference. We are thrilled to be able to share her contributions with you and present her with the You Make the Difference Award. Congratulations, Ariane.
Oh, great. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I think I. Is it on?
No. It's okay. Now it's on.
Can you hear me now? I have a teacher voice. I can project.
Make sure you can hear you. We might have an option too.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Oh, now it's on. Oh.
We'll switch.
First, I wanted to say thank you to the very sturdy award. Thank you. I just first wanted to say thank you to my very supportive family. I would not be in the position that I'm in without them, and I'm emotional all the time. I'm a Madison parent, and so that the way I teach is the way I want my kids to be taught. Next, I work with an incredible staff. My leadership team, my intervention team, the gen ed teachers, the special ed teachers, the instructional assistants that I work with are instrumental into what I do daily. And so I would not be there without all of my staff who sees parts of me I didn't really realize I had. And then last, I work with amazing students who work very hard every day, and I push on their learning, and they are accepting of that. So, thank you. Oh yes, my family is here, my husband Guy, and then my daughters who are in preschool at SIMUS, they're here, Ava and Julia. And then my mother retired in May of 2020 to take over helping with our childcare at home. So, thank you.
Our next You Make the Difference Award recipient is Nathan Butler. We have been fortunate to hire some really amazing people to work at Madison Meadows. Nathan Butler joined our Ram fam last year as a PE teacher after moving here from Texas to start his own family. We first knew Nathan was going to be the ultimate go-getter that summer before he started work officially. Nathan and Mrs. Clark met and then started a continuous dialogue about our physical health and education program. He probably asked hundreds of questions and shared so many great ideas, to which she mainly replied, "That's an amazing idea. Let me run it past the district office to see if we can make that happen." So that's how we now have our recreational sports class where students can get their boater's license and where they learn to fish, cook outside, and camp. That's how we have a really amazing after-school archery club. And that's how our 7th and 8th grade students have gotten to go on field trips to take on obstacle courses, to rock climb, and to golf. Nathan has also picked up quite a few of our extracurricular coaching jobs. Last year, he helped out by coaching boys volleyball at Madison No. 1. He coached our very own flag football team to the Valley Athletic Conference Championship and also coached our baseball team. This year, Nathan took on the role of athletic director and has worked hard to elevate our program. All of our student athletes participate in community service projects and in character development education. Mr. Butler was even willing to take pies in the face from the fall sports canned food drive team, which is where he is tonight, getting pied, that brought in the most items. Nathan wanted to highlight our student athlete accomplishments, so he planned our first athletics banquet last year and is planning a recognition event after each season this year. He helped create our new Meadows Athletics Council involving student athlete leaders and parents to help athletics raise funds for new uniforms. He implemented fun in-house 4-versus-4 volleyball and basketball tournaments to get more students involved in different experiences on campus. And he has created an environment that breeds positive school spirit. When you hear all of the things that Nathan has accomplished, it's hard to believe this is only his 2nd year at Madison Meadows. Nathan has helped us to elevate student experiences both in and out of the classroom, and for that reason, we chose him to be the recipient of the You Make the Difference Award for Madison Meadows. And since he is unfortunately not here, but fortunately for the students getting pied in the face right now, Mrs. Clark is going to accept his award on his behalf.
I'm not as good looking as we'll do this, and I just want to say thank you. He is at our fall sports banquet tonight. They've got hundreds and hundreds of cans, so he is getting pied in the face. I don't know if it's volleyball, soccer, or cross country that won yet, so we'll find out. We'll have to show you pictures later, but thank you.
You know, you could have taken one for the team.
You think I should have done it?
All right, our first Shining Star Award recipient is Jocelyn Busio. Jocelyn Busio, or as we all lovingly refer to her as Miss B, is a bright shining star at Simus. Miss B comes to work each day with a brilliant smile on her face that spreads joy to all those she sees. Miss B is a paraprofessional educator who supports students in a self-contained classroom at Madison Simus. Her work in the classroom helps ensure that students feel welcome, supported, and encouraged to be the best version of themselves at school. Miss B dedicates herself to making Simus a place where students want to be. In the classroom, Miss B is always hard at work preparing materials for students to ensure that they have the best learning outcomes as possible. Aside from academics, Miss B truly tries to tune in, Aside from academics, Miss B truly tries to tune in to students' social emotional needs by having conversations and showing genuine interest in what students may be struggling with at any given time. Make no mistake that Miss B is able to set clear expectations, but is also able to help students understand that they are capable of doing hard things. Whether assisting a student in crisis or pitching in when short-staffed, Miss B is always up for the challenge. Miss B delivers a healthy balance of love as well as setting transparent expectations for students. Miss B truly understands that extraordinary excellence comes from within, instilling a sense of self-love and confidence for all those around her. Around campus, Miss B will help teachers without hesitation. Ms. B will collaborate with others to brainstorm different strategies to help support emotional and behavioral growth for those who need it most. She will expand her role to support students in need outside of her classroom, providing quick check-ins, pep talks, and a safe place for students to self-regulate before returning to class. Around campus, Ms. B uses her positivity and creativity to lift up and inspire those around her. Ms. B started this year by recreating a bulletin board in our staff lounge to help all staff members and volunteers learn about one another. And she worked with our IB coordinator to design a bulletin board to showcase student learning in our hallways. Ms. B takes time to recognize and celebrate the achievements of others. Her joyful attitude makes others want to be around her. When others see Ms. B helping, they are inspired to contribute positively to the school community as well. To the students she works with at school, Ms. B is a key reason they are successful and supported. To her colleagues, Ms. B is an example of how to motivate others to want to be better versions of themselves. The attitude and grace that Ms. B brings to school daily are truly inspirational. Ms. B is a wonderful example of a shining star. The Simus community as well as Madison District are truly lucky to have her.
Thank you. Hi guys, I just wanted to thank my family, my friends. Oh no, I'm crying. And an amazing team. And all the ones that support us and have given us all the support and love that we get in our classroom. I thank you all. I love everyone that supports everything we do. And also, without the team we have, or without each other, we wouldn't be the dream team we are today, as Ms. Kendra always calls us, the dream team. And our classroom is an amazing classroom. We work in self-contained, and let me tell you, it is not easy. It is challenging, and it is very rewarding to see the progress in our students. I love what I do. I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. Thank you all for this amazing award, and I wasn't expecting it, so thank you. Yes, I have my best friend right there. She's right there, and then my lovely teacher on the side over there too, Kendra. Thank you, guys.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. All right, and our second Shining Star Award recipient is Hugh Rich. Hugh Rich joined the Madison Meadows family last year as well. He is our delightfully amazing crossing guard who provides safe passage for our students who cross Central Avenue each morning and afternoon. The position demands tact, humor, and patience, which Hugh has in abundance. I'm sure everyone here in our community has had the opportunity to drive down Central. It can get pretty hairy out there. Hugh crosses our walkers and bicyclists while simultaneously watching out for all of those high school students heading to and from Sunny Slope and those adults driving to and from work while multitasking on their phones. All the while, he stays cool, calm, and collected, a pretty impressive feat in and of itself. Hugh is such a joy to work with, not only for his dependability, because he literally never misses work, but his great disposition. He always greets everyone, our students, our staff members, and the neighbors in our community with a smile, a welcoming comment, or a joke. And I think it's important to mention that we receive wonderful compliments on Hugh's interactions with students from our community members who walk the bridle path. His awesomeness is recognized by all. It's such a great relief to have such an amazing human with us at Madison Meadows. Hugh Rich truly is a shining star.
Yes, thank you so much.
words? Or? You don't have to, but you're welcome to.
I'd like to thank everyone at Madison Meadow and the people that think that I really shine, in which I don't know. Okay, I think that's enough.
Do you have any
I don't have my wife or anybody here, but I have a principal. They were sitting right there. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
It's always my favorite part of the meeting. All right. Next, we have Superintendent's Report. Dr. Guerin, what do you have to report?
Thank you, President Osborne, members of the governing board, cabinet, and guests. I want to first begin by thanking the Madison Simus students for their fantastic square dancing, recorder playing, and just overall singing in Spanish. It was just quite lovely, and it reminded me of my square dancing days a long, long time ago. Last week, we hosted Discover Madison, which is an opportunity for future Madison parents to tour our elementary school. A huge thank you to our tour guide, board members Spear and Kazi, and administrators Ms. Ball and Ms. Breling. A special thanks to Nicole Rodriguez and the communications department for hosting this event. School principals, a huge thank you to you and your staff who took parents on a tour of your amazing schools. And thank the staff from various departments who made the event such a success, including food service, transportation, and Center for the Arts. It was really all hands on deck to show what is special about Madison, and I'm really grateful for everyone's efforts. Thank you to the Madison Education Foundation for hosting dinner and a movie this weekend at the Center for the Arts. Attendees enjoyed delicious food from food trucks at tables set outside under twinkling lights to enjoy the beautiful weather while eating all the popcorn one could eat and watching a Disney Pixar movie. What else could you ask for? A special thanks to Molly Dodd and the Foundation Board for planning such a wonderful event for our Madison families. The Arizona Department of Education recently released the 2021-22 school letter grades for all public schools. The letter grades are based on student proficiency and growth on the state test, English language acquisition rates, inclusion of special education students, and other indicators such as reduction of students that are absent. Madison school students continue to perform at a high level, and I want to thank each and every staff member for all of their tireless work in supporting our students to foster success for all. Our focus on meeting the needs of each student is a direct result of our staff's dedication and our parents' support of their child's educational journey. Tonight, Mr. Piankowski will share a detailed report of Madison's school letter grades. Though it is important to note that standardized test results are just one academic assessment and cannot measure the complexities of the learning process, we celebrate both student proficiency and growth of Madison students. Growth is important, we know. There is more work to be done in our shared effort to ensure every student achieves academic proficiency. Other indicators, such as our measures of academic progress, are critical components that will help us to drive instruction and intervention individualized for every student. I am confident that we together will continue to work tirelessly to ensure success for all Madison students.
Thank you. Mr. Holcomb.
Yes, the Madison Education Foundation dinner and a movie was a lot of fun. A lot of the community came out, and we had actually some extra food left over, and through some of the efforts of the board members and that there, they were able to deliver that for the homeless to be able to utilize, and that was great. Also today, the Madison Education Foundation met to give out its grants to teachers that had been applications. And so it was a good weekend and a good day for the Madison Education Foundation. Thanks. Thank you.
Ms. Gresham.
It's just real quickly, thank you to the Simon students for the entertainment portion of the evening, and congratulations to all our award winners. I occasionally run on the bridle path, and I do see Mr. Rich, and he's always smiling and saying hi to everyone, so that's always nice to see. So congratulations to all our award winners. Thank you.
Ms. Spear.
Thank you to all the families who brought their children down so that they could display their talents and all of what they've learned. I know that Tuesday evenings are not an easy time for families to be in a boardroom and at 6 o'clock with younger siblings even. So thank you for bringing your children down so that we can see what they've been up to, and also to their teachers for doing what they do so well. I also wanted to say thank you to the parents for coming on Discover Madison. I had a chance to talk with a lot of prospective kindergarten families and learn what is important to them and hear what excites them and then also what worries them, and be able to discuss what Madison has to offer to their family. And it is always so impressive for me as a board member, but also as a former Madison parent, to walk onto our campuses, our elementary campuses, and see what's going on. Our school principals do such an incredible job, and having student ambassadors, for instance, lead us around, and just allowing for our schools to demonstrate not just the learning, but also the leadership that is taking place on our campuses, to me is very impressive. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Ms. Ghazi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to also just add it was such an honor to be a tour guide on the Discover Madison tour, and I didn't really fully appreciate it till I was in the first school, that was Camelview, that we hadn't really toured them extensively since the fall of 2019, which is a long time. And so all the improvements that we'd been heard about, we were getting to see them in reality. And I have to say, I was incredibly impressed with the work that has been done on the small upgrades. They're small, but they really they shone and were really impressive to see. And I just have to say, every year when I've had the honor of being able to be, we've done this for a while now, to be a tour guide on this tour. It is just such a humbling moment to just be so kind of awed along with the families at what we're doing on each one of our campuses. And they all have a different feel and ethos, but they all are impressive in their own unique ways. And I mean, obviously, Principal Webb was there, and they're just really impressive tours and what they shared, as well as the instructional leaders showing us also what was happening in the classrooms, and finally just the kids, showing us what they were learning. So it was a really unique opportunity, and I just feel so honored to have participated in that. I wanted to also thank SIMUS parents and the teachers. It's been a long time since I've seen all those recorders and all the different belts that my kids worked so hard to get through, and it was kind of a nightmare, but so I just like little bit kind of reliving that as a parent. And then finally, I wanted to say thank you to Jean Carruth for speaking at our last board meeting. I want to just state as a board member that I think it's always valuable when either parents or community members or even students and teachers take the time to share a call to the public. I think we're okay with sometimes hearing the good, the bad, and the ugly, because it always gives us new perspectives, and it shows that you've taken the time to care enough about the district to share something you think we need to know. And I really value that, and I thank you for taking that time. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I have one comment. It's an important day. I hope everyone voted, not twice, just once. And it's important, for our education system, people to be active. For those who haven't voted, I think you still have half an hour. So go out there and make it. All right, now on to calls to the public. We do have a call to the public. And just kind of the rules of call to the public, we cannot respond to any of the comments you make other than instructing the superintendent to look into the matter. And we limit you to 3 minutes. So please come on up. I want to say it's Kirsten McAfee.
Oh, it's Kristen.
Kristen. Welcome. Go ahead.
So, yeah, my name is Kristen McAfee, and it's so excited to be here. Yeah, so, I want to contribute in any way I can. So I read the message. I'm a new teacher, by the way, new substitute. Just got my certificate, so I'm excited about that. Excited to get in the classroom. And I read your all's message, which says our commitment to our students doesn't begin and end when the bell rings, right? Which is important to me. My mom, she taught me at a young age that, I can speak to anybody, And then my dad, he would force me to get up and speak at schools, right, when I was younger. So all that has come full circle. And my mom, when I was young, she said, you better not ever join a gang. I am your gang, right? So that was important to me growing up in the city, Chicago. So when I had a daughter, I was like, you know what? I want to get more involved in schools, right? I want to learn what she's learning, get involved. So I wrote a few books, right, because I was at a board meeting in Chicago, and the superintendent was like, we need more community engagement. We need more kids, parents, community stakeholders, and so forth, right? So that really resonated with me. So I wrote the book, and then I realized, I've been marketing social media for a long time. And I just realized that, the story could be told better, right, after the bell and during the bell, right? No offense to the communications lady behind me, but it's just, it could be told better, right? More videos, and I think a lot of it is they may have a lot of work on their plate, right? So I want to come in as a consultant and help out where I can. I've gotten over like 500,000 views in the last few weeks, right, with my content. And I just think that as a school district, you all have so many assets that goes viral: football, basketball, sports, dance, just all the different things that go viral. So I like to contribute and help where I can. So I got my resume, the pricing. I'm just excited to come into education. My background has been real estate, so I just closed the deal today, which I was pretty happy about. Top, yeah. So thank you all.
Thank you very much. Dr. Guerin, will you look into the issue? Thank you. All righty, now on to item 7, consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I will move to approve the consent agenda you've been trying to get approved for a while tonight.
I will second.
Ms. Kazi and Ms. Gusher. There are a few election results coming in that I have a tad bit of interest in. All righty, the motion passes unanimously. Now on to item 8.0. We've seen these policies. Is there any questions or comments? Oh, I'm sorry, this is first read. All right, Dr. Guerin, will you introduce this item? And I know you have a schedule of people to present on that item.
I do, thank you. President Osborne, members of the governing board, cabinet, and guests, tonight administration will present recommended policy changes for your consideration. This is a first read. I'd like to begin with 8.1. Jackie Guin will help support that.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the governing board, Dr. Guerin, and cabinet. I'm here this evening on behalf of Mrs. Nicole Rodriguez to introduce several recommended updates to policy KDB-R, which is the regulation for the public information request policy. The primary recommendation is the addition of the term "or designee" with regards to the duties outlined in the policy, as requests are processed through the communications department in coordination with the superintendent and other district departments. The additional recommendations include adding the term digital to the format types listed in the commercial purpose section and rewording of a sentence for clarification. Thank you.
Any questions? All right, 8.2.
So I can do a quick overview of 8.2 to 8.4 and then see if there's any questions, if that's okay. All right. Policy 8.2 is professional support staff orientation and training, first reading. And the new language states school districts and charter schools may not require an employee to engage in and shall not use public money for training, orientation, or therapy that presents any form of blame or judgment on the basis of race, ethnicity, or sex. So this new language is based on a statutory requirement. Policy 8.3, staff health and safety. And this policy adds that a school district may not require a resident of the state to receive a vaccination for COVID or any variant of a COVID-19 vaccination, or impose any requirement to wear a mask or face covering anywhere on the school district premises. So we know some of this language is in other policies, but it is also in this policy as required by statute. And then finally, we have 8.4, which is a slight revision to the policy to include contracted psychologists, that they are not required to have the licensure that we do not require of school psychologists when performing duties with their jobs. So it's just to include that we do have to hire contracted school psychologists, so many in the districts because of the shortage. So that language just clarifies that addition. Is there any questions on those three policies?
Okay,
Okay, then I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Garvey.
Ms. Garvey,
Thank you.
close us out.
So on 8.5, policy DIA accounting system, this refers to, it just clarifies language around applying to the county school regarding accounting responsibility program. Madison already has applied and we are part of it, so we won't see anything different there. On 8.6, JF student admissions, this is has become statute as a result of last legislative session that just modifies the eligibility an application for those applying for a Certificate of Educational Convenience known as a CEC. This allows somebody to go to a district outside of their resident district if it's due to a distance or lack of adequate transportation or parent or guardian's employment. A lot of times this applies to students that are on Air Force bases or reservations. So that's regarding that. I'm going to skip to 8.8, transportation services, because then 8.7 will make more sense. So 8.8 is policy EE, transportation services. Districts now have another type of school vehicle that they can use as a school bus, and those vehicles are 11 to 15 passenger vehicles, as well as putting in law now that permits electric vehicles as well. Then when we go back up to 8.7, policy EEAEA, the bus driver requirements, it outlines the requirements that are for drivers of these 11 to 15 passenger vehicles, that they have to go through the appropriate training, they have to have DPS certificate and a fingerprint clearance card. We go down to policy 8.9, community use of school. This just changes to say who we need to name as additional insureds when we rent our facilities or property. So now, in addition to just the school district, we need to have its governing board, employees, and agents named as additional insured. 8.10 is JFABEB, tuition at admission of non-resident students. This clarifies language about the documentation that can be gathered to prove Arizona residency for non-resident students of Madison. And we now can, it's in there to take utility bills, Section 8 agreements, or an Arizona address confidentiality program card. The last policy, 8.11, is policy DJE, which changes, instead of needing verbal quotations, we now need written quotations on purchases from at least $10,000, but less than $100,000. And the other change in this policy was to increase the maximum dollar amount of an individual job order contracting construction service to $1.5 million from $1 million.
Any questions, Ms. Kazi?
So on 8.7, so they need for the 11 to 15 to transport in a bus with 11 to 15 students. They need a bus endorsement and a school bus certificate. How can you explain how that's similar to a CDL? Like, how does that compare to what our current drivers require?
So since it is a different type of vehicle, it's a different type of license, they will still be required to, again, do all the same training, just the CDL license won't be a requirement. They still have to go to get their fingerprint clearance card. They still have to get the DPS certificate. It's just that they won't be required to actually hold the CDL, but all the training is still there. So if they do want to get a CDL, it's also addressed in the policy. That is the responsibility of the driver. There's a $25 application fee for that.
And I assume that if we ever chose to do that, we would require, though, that our drivers get CDL so that we could use them for both bus or 11, the smaller buses, or do we have thoughts on that? I just am kind of curious on how we are making sure that our workforce is able to meet all the needs in transportation.
Definitely. So we are going to require still that our bus drivers have CDLs. However, we have seen in the past where there are some instances where we've been short a driver, somebody's out sick, so I can't say that every single time, but we will take every step we can to ensure that people have CDLs.
I know a lot of other schools use it for after-school coaches, and they have the smaller club sports. I know Highland Prep uses that, and that was critical when there was a bus shortage. Although my son didn't appreciate the 3-hour van rides. Mr. Holcomb.
Yeah, I have a question about the last policy, DJE, and I apologize, I didn't bring this up earlier. I'm very familiar with using of JOC contracts, but you went from $1 million to $1.5 million. A lot of places go to 3 or 5 more. And I was just wondering why the $1.5 million instead of a higher number, which has become more common. And
Mr. Holcomb, we definitely would appreciate a higher limit if the board would even do 2 million. We had talked about that, but we just felt even going to 1.5 million would at least cover painting jobs, because now we're just seeing, as inflation has hit, we can't even do smaller projects for the million. But we felt there were still a handful that we could do for under 1.5, but we needed at least 1.5. And knowing prior conversations that we've had with the board regarding this policy and the amount, we were happy to ask for 1.5. But if I could raise it to 2, I know that we would be thrilled.
well, yeah, the job order contracting is I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's one where you get qualifications and have a group of contractors that you can go to and get money without having to go back through the competitive bidding process, because you did it when you selected them to be basically on the list. And I am concerned about the level of inflation that happens and the flexibility it gives you. So I would be in favor of, instead of doing a 1.5, to go to at least 3 million, which is very common municipalities and in school districts, and it gives you the flexibility. It doesn't mean you have to use it, but it gives you that flexibility to go up to that type of, and it's surprising how quickly you can get above $1.5 million on a project these days. And it's an effective tool to have as an alternative. So that would be my suggestion as we look at the 3. Some places go up to 5, but I would go at least 3.
Ms. Spear.
Yes, one quick question with regards to that, Mr. Holcomb and Ms. Garvey, is would that allow us to be nimble in terms of repairing something if there was a big storm and there was a damage and we needed to fix that so that students and staff were safe? Is that the kind of thing that would be helpful?
Yes, it definitely would help us in those situations.
Okay, thank you.
I think I'm generally supportive of the idea, but just so I'm clear, the board still has the authority to look at this. You're going to come to us and say, hey, do you want us to contract this out, or what's the environment? We get a recommendation, and at any time, we can say we would be more comfortable with a full competitive bid. Am I?
Yes, you're right in that, and we would also evaluate if we think that we could get better pricing if we went out to a full bid. Currently, even when we use JOC, we're trying to get 3 quotes, which we're not even required, but we are still trying to do that. It is getting increasingly difficult to get 3 contractors out for a project that's $1 million. They just won't come out. So we would definitely, if we feel that it's to our benefit to actually go through a formal process, we would definitely do that. This isn't to circumvent, this is just to help us get those smaller things done in a more efficient, timely manner.
Yeah, if I may, this just deals with the procurement. It doesn't change the signature authority or the approval authority. So instead of them coming back and saying, we've gone out, we've done an RFP or an RFQ or an invitation for bids, and then bring it to the board for approval, they will go through, we've gone out to our JOC contractors, and then still bring the contract back to the board for approval, because it's above the limits of which Ms. Garvey can, or the superintendent can sign a contract.
So is the sense of the board to go up to the 3 million, and so Ms. Garvey, can you make a modification for the
Yes,
final
thank you.
read to that level?
Thank you.
For the input, Scott. Okay, any other comments or questions on the first read policies? Seeing none, now on to Board Policy 9, second read. Are there any questions or comments? We heard presentations on all these policies. If there is none, do we vote on this? Yes, that's what I thought. Can I get a motion to approve item 9?
Mr. Chair, you want to take these individually, or are you trying to take them?
I'd take them as a whole.
Okay, let's confirm. Are we setting up? Are we set up to vote that way? Yes. Okay.
All right.
So as a result, I'd like to move that we approve policies KB, IHA, IHAMB, DNC, JICFA. Feel like I'm speaking a different language. JJIA, JJIB, JLCB, JLCC, GLDAB, and KI as presented.
I will second that. And I also just want to comment that I want to thank Barb Marshall and everyone that worked on all these and is still working on all these policies. So it's a lot. So thank you guys, everyone, for doing that.
Mitra, can you repeat that motion? No, I'm kidding.
No, I will not. I refuse.
All right, please vote. I would have said items 9.1 through 9.11, but that's just me. I think it's all that chorus training you're getting, trying to show off. All righty. Item information on 10.1, state assessment data. Dr. Guerin, you want to introduce this item?
Yes, President Osborne, members of the governing board, cabinet, and guests, the State Board of Education and the Arizona Department of Education has released school labels. Mr. Piankowski, Director for Research and Evaluation, will present an overview of the 2021-2022 A through F letter grade system and the letter grades for each Madison school. Mr. Piankowski.
Dr. Osborne, members of the board, Dr. Guerin, and cabinet, thanks for the opportunity to present tonight. Tonight I'll be reviewing the recently released A through F letter grades from the 2021-2022 school year, so that would be last year's results. And to get into that conversation, I want to point out that many of the Indicators that we review during the school improvement process are some of our leading indicators that we use to predict results on this lagging indicator of our A through F letter grade results. And as we jump into that, we have our A through F letter grade school accountability process that's broken up into really 4 major parts, one being growth, one being proficiency, one being EL results, and another one being kind of a cornucopia of indicators under acceleration readiness. This year, the Department of Education recommended and the State Board of Education approved the utilization of prior year cut scores, so cut scores that have been used prior to all the interrupted learning that occurred. And those cut points can be listed right here on these letter grades, where you can see some of the primary numbers being that a school needs earned 84, over 84 points to get into the A category, and over 72 and 72.39 to earn a B category. Those aren't what we're used to from our grammar school days, and that's because it's based on a distribution of scores from the past. So thinking about that, I also want to refresh the board that in 2019 and 2020, there weren't any test results. And then in 2020 and 2021, there was a lot of mixed results with virtual learning students coming to assess, take assessments, and students having different learning environments on there. And I bring that up as some of the information that's used in these calculations. That data is a baseline data. And then moving forward, I will just have a brief review of some of the major indicators so that we can refresh ourselves and understand what some of those scores mean. Proficiency is 30% or 30 points of the formula. And one thing to make sure that is understood is that with those 30 points, if you see a school that has 15% or 15% of the score, 15 points, that doesn't mean half of their kids are proficient. They just earned 15 of those 30 points because the state uses something called weighted proficiency, where students at different performance levels have different weights attributed to their outcomes. It's not just a traditional pass or fail, where a student is either a yes or a no. There's a gradients to that. For growth, growth is also a large part of the formula, and probably something that we'll talk about in the future as well. But right now, growth is looks at a point in time, typically the past, and compares that point in time to the future, being the most recent results. Typically, the growth category is split up into 2 main categories. One is student growth percentiles, which looks at how kids grew in comparison to other students like them throughout the state. So a low-performing student is compared to another low-performing student in that grade level, in that subject area during that period of time. Same with a high-performing student, so on and so on. Previously, there was another indicator included in growth, which is called the student growth target. So the student growth percentile says, how did those kids grow in comparison to other students? Student growth target says, is it enough to get them on track to be proficient over a certain period of time? Because of the change in the high school state assessment, they stopped using the student growth percentiles this past term because they didn't have an appropriate target to set. So they discontinued the use of the student growth target. Student growth target is typically highly correlated with proficiency. But this year, for these evaluations, we only use student growth percentiles. And so student growth percentiles took up 50% or 50 points of the formula. Additionally, with student growth percentiles, students who have previous lower performing status levels are weighted more heavily when they have high growth. So if you have a student who 2 years ago was minimally proficient and then grew from 2 years ago to this year at a high rate, they'd be weighted at 2 points versus a student who 2 years ago was highly proficient and then grew to still be highly proficient would be weighted at 1 point. So that's a big influence on the outcomes. And we'll put a little pin in that and come back to that in a moment. Additionally, we have the consideration for English language learners. And that indicator looks at the growth of English language learners from their first AZELA assessment, which is an English language acquisition assessment, and then also looking at the proficiency of English language learners as well. So it takes those 2 indicators and puts them together. Schools need a minimum of 10 10 students in that subgroup to be able to qualify for that indicator. So a caveat to that is a school like Madison Traditional, having close to 800 students, even though they have a low number of English language learners, that could still have a large part of their formula, because they would only need 10 students to qualify for that indicator. And that's another one we'll put a pin in and come to in a minute. And lastly, the last component, which I mentioned before, was a cornucopia of indicators, where it looks at the increasing highly proficient students in various different grade levels, as well as decreasing minimally proficient students. Looking at grade 3 English language arts, decreasing the number of minimally proficient students, chronic absenteeism, inclusion of special education students in a general education environment, meaning their least restrictive environment, and then improving subgroups. Just about all of our schools earned all of our schools earned the 6 points in subgroups. Many of our schools earned, or 2 of our schools earned points in special education. None of our schools earned chronic absenteeism points, which you would have to decrease the rate of chronic absenteeism from one year to the next. Most of our schools earned all of our schools earned the Move On When Reading, grade 3 English language arts points, and then about half of our schools that qualified for the grade 6, 7, 8 math considerations earned points. Additionally, there are some bonus indicators. The science assessment is used as a bonus indicator for schools. If schools have a proficiency rate that is close to or higher than the state average, they have the opportunity to earn 1.5 or 3 points. A big change in this indicator is that previously all of our schools had the opportunity to earn a science bonus points, but since the science assessment moved from 4th grade to 5th grade, now only our middle schools and MTA have the opportunity to earn those science points, and schools that traditionally scored very well on the science assessment no longer have access to those bonus points like all of our elementaries. And then lastly, there's also another bonus point related to special education enrollment, and that looks at the percentage of special education students that might be enrolled at your school to see if your school has a high rate of special education students enrolled in there. And the purpose of that indicator is to acknowledge that the provision of special education needs might be a more complicated task, and that students that take on that opportunity should be awarded some bonus points. 4 of our schools earned 2 bonus points, and 2 of our schools earned 1 bonus point for that. To give you a little bit of context, here are some of the results of the preliminary results that were released last Friday across the state. Blue is an A, orange is a B, I guess reddish orange is a C, and then light blue D or teal is D, and F is green. You'll make note that the A letter grades from bottom to top are relatively consistent in 2018, 2019, 2020. There was about a 10 percentage point increase in the number of B schools and about an 8 or 9 percentage increase in the number of C schools, and a decrease in the number of D and F schools. 2017 is on the bottom, 2018 up to 2022. This graph I included to help demonstrate how some of those things are different. I asked you to put a pin in the conversation about growth. And because the growth indicators were changed around quite substantially from the prior year's comparisons, the scatter plot on the bottom left is from 2017. The one above that is from 2018, 2019, 2020 is at the top. The axis going across, the y-axis, looks at proficiency. Schools have the ability to earn 30 points, and you can see from 0 to 30 how those schools distribute across earning those full 30 points. Going up and down, that is the growth points from 0 to 50, and you can see that clustering of schools that had earned different degrees of 50 points. You'll notice in 2017, 2018, 2019 that those scatter plots are all relatively similar to each other. Then when we move into 2022, there seems to be a very big shift upward and to the left for proficiency and upwards for growth. Some of the reasons related to that are the removal of the student growth target from the growth formula, as well as schools having higher rates of lower performing students, therefore qualifying them to earn more points in the student growth percentiles. And so as things shift forward, I think that's something to definitely take into consideration, is that many schools did earn quite a few points for growth, and that's something that we should consider as we anticipate our progress going throughout the year, that there was a large inflation of growth scores in the A through F letter grade system for some of our schools as well as schools throughout the state. And then almost lastly, I'll provide an overview of the major indicators for the A through F letter grade formula. The top line proficiency, you could see how each of our schools earned points out of 30%. For growth, out of 50% or 50 points. ELL proficiency out of 10 points, acceleration readiness out of 10 points. I've highlighted 2 scores in there, specifically under MTA, and that was the second pin I asked you to put into the conversation, because I believe at this point those scores haven't been reported correctly. Been in various different conversations with the Department of Education over the past month to rectify that situation, where either MTA did not have high enough amount of student count to have that item included in their indicator, or that they should have earned all of those points. And so we're in the process of discussing that, and that could impact their results. It would not change their letter grade, but it would impact their final score. And as we move forward, we can see a tally of schools earning bonus points, as well as the final letter grades for our 8 schools, noting 3 A's, 4 B's, and then a C school that was very close to that cutoff point of also earning a B as well. Any questions?
Surprise, surprise.
I'm sorry. We're just torturing you.
No. I mean, this is the important stuff. I mean, this is, so Ms. Kazi and then Ms. Spear, and then run the discussion.
I won't ask all. I'll be done.
Okay.
I won't ask all, because obviously you have a great love of the staffing kind of deep dive of a few years ago. So I just have a question. So we have proficiency, right?
Yeah.
How do they justify eliminating the growth target for growth when you have proficiency levels that you've determined students need to? Why can't you still have that growth to target for the proficiency levels? We say that you've reached proficiency and that's where we want to go. I'm completely confused by that.
Thank you for the question, Ms. Kazi. At this point in time, I think there is the opportunity to bring that indicator, the student growth target, back into the formula in coming years. I know the State Board of Education has already expressed the want to further define what an A school means and what a B school means and revisit this formula. A vast majority of the members on the State Board of Education are relatively new to their position, so I think there will be quite a few conversations about it. For this term, the statisticians involved in the process didn't feel comfortable including the student growth target in the calculation, because they felt the target wasn't accurate or reliable because of the first administration of the high school tests, which are used to establish the target. And so they said, not knowing,
I don't know, any other standardized test.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's just like, it seems like there's plenty of.
I think once they have that data down more consistently, they'll use it. They'll return to using it.
Okay,
That's my prediction.
And then my other question is, special ed enrollment, is it weighted by basically, obviously, special ed students are weighted in complexity. Are they weighted when we determine what our special ed population is? Is it just student for student? What is that weight? What is the formula?
So for the bonus point, for the special education and bonus point, what they look at is the average throughout the state of what a typical enrollment is for a special education population rate. And then they say, are you higher than that average?
Just by the number of students?
Just by, students who have that need versus your denominator of students enrolled.
There's no assessment as to the complexity of the special ed students that you're supporting or educating?
For the
Just the number of special ed students enrolled?
Yes. and that's for the bonus point. For the cornucopia indicator, special education, that does take into consideration the type of students that are in certain environments. So that one is a little bit more precise, but neither of the indicators really go into the vast spectrum of what special education needs may be.
For Rose Lane, where they have a population of some pretty complex cases,
Mhm.
do they then, and there's an incentive for them to move a certain percentage to A stream to get those points, are they in a difficult situation?
They do, thank you for the question. Madison Rose Lane does have a complicated special education population, and they did qualify for all the points possible in this formula this current year. And the formula does take into consideration that they have high rates of students with different needs, and that they do have rates that are higher than the state average.
Ms. Peter.
My question is probably going to be much easier than Ms. Ozzy's. I'm curious as to why there is no data for EL proficiency and growth for Madison Meadows.
Yep. Great. Sorry, I skipped right over that one. I meant to use that as my example. Madison Meadows didn't have an N count high enough to qualify for that indicator. And so my thought is that MTA should have a similar denominator of 90 in that situation, or have earned points for English language score. So when a school doesn't qualify for an indicator, they remove it from the indicator and then decrease the denominator. One of the reasons why the state has decided to use an N count of 10 is to have schools qualify for as many indicators as possible.
Thank you.
Ms. Gresham, do you have a question?
Thank you. Actually, some of mine already got answered, so we'll be very efficient. But I just had one question as far as the bonus points, and you don't have to answer this now. Maybe Dr. Guerin can just get this for me at some point. But I'm just curious for the bonus points, which schools, like which bonus points they received, and
Can you go back one slide? I think was helpful.
yes, so the bonus points. So every school got different, So I'm just curious which ones they got and how many for each school. But yeah, thank you.
I can provide a detailed report on that.
So,
thank you for the question, Mr.
go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, I just wanted to look at Park, which has got the lowest proficiency. We understand that issue, but it also had the highest growth. And is that, and part of that factor is because of the low proficiency, but is that a true indicator that they're moving in the right direction as far as getting to proficiency over the prior year?
Mr. Holcomb, thank you for the question. I think it is an indicator that they did show tremendous progress from the prior year. If we look at scores from 2 years ago to last year, there was significant change in many of their levels and many of the subgroup levels as well. They had increased rates of proficiency for many of their subgroup populations. They did have close to 40% of their students who 2 years ago were minimally proficient and showed average or high growth going into last year. So they had a good part of their population in that category that did demonstrate progress that was superior to their peer groups throughout the state.
Okay, and is the next level, the EL proficiency and growth, which is 10%? I mean, they had that very high growth, but they got a low score of 3. I'm just trying to figure that's a combined factor, or the proficiency and growth, and that's why although they had that almost all the points in growth, that's why that was so low, and versus like SIMUS, which still had decent growth. That's why I got a 9 in that area, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Mr. Holcomb, yes. School has an opportunity to earn 5 points for growth and then 5 points also for proficiency. And those cut scores are based on state average as well. So if you score proficiency higher than the state average or growth higher than the state average, you qualify for increments of groups. You can earn 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 points for growth, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 points for proficiency, and Park earned, I believe it was 3 points for growth.
Yeah, and okay, and you did answer the other question I had during your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, here's how I'm interpreting the data. We have in 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5 of our schools, a major proficiency crisis. We're growing well, but we're not growing fast enough. This is the crude Osborne interpretation of the data, because I look at those proficiency scores and they're pretty abysmal in some of these schools, but we have very positive growth. And I think one of the things at some point in terms of, not a report or a plan or discussion, is what are we going to do about that? Because I think because what I don't know is what is realistic for growth to catch us up, and is it a 1 year, a 2 year, or 3? I mean, what's the, do we drop the bomb, pull the grenade, and, ask the easy question? But that, I think, is going to be the crux of the focus, I think, for the next year or two, because those numbers are pretty alarming, unless I'm misinterpreting.
Well, that's not but that's not a percentage. That's
No, but
16 out of 30. Just
No,
I looked at it that way too at first.
No, and I know that's not a percentage of, but those are
Relatable.
Is that out of 30 points?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting half the points of proficiency, which is, we have 3 schools that nearly perfect on proficiency. And then, so just for at some point, a deep dive conversation is probably warranted.
And President Osborne, as Mr. Piankowski mentioned, other data, such as our MAP scores, are really helping us to see where students are and where they need to grow. And so we can specifically address them, because this is important data, but it is one test, and we understand that scores have dropped, throughout the state because of many reasons, including the pandemic. But we definitely have a sense of urgency on increasing proficiency for all students. Growth is important, but we know proficiency is the goal. High school readiness is the goal. So through alignment of our strategic plan, our school integrated action plans, that is our priority. And though I wouldn't want to call it a crisis, because we are absolutely growing our students, we also in certain areas want to absolutely increase proficiency.
Yep.
So can you just walk us through Meadows acceleration readiness, where they got dinged?
Meadows, for acceleration readiness points, earned 6 points for subgroup improvement. One of the things about acceleration readiness is I think the average across the state for earning subgroup improvement is like 5.3 out of 6 points is the average, something along those lines, because you have many different subgroups to qualify. So all of our schools earned those 6 points. They did not earn points for 8th grade mathematics status. And so that was something that we're going to look at. We already have quite a few conversations set up to engage in that, because they did not show improvement from 1 year to the next. They also did not qualify for the chronic absenteeism points. They did not qualify for the special education enrollment points. We looked at beginning of the year MAP data. So one of the things that we noticed is end of the year AASA data and beginning of the year MAP data showed an improvement over the summer, which typically doesn't happen, where we saw kids more engaged and performing at higher levels in many of our grade level spans than the end of the year state assessment. And typically the MAP data predicts results. And so we're very eager in the next few weeks to administer MAP during December to really give us a very good gaze as to how we've improved since the end of last year, compare that to some of our other data sets, and understand what types of students are growing in our system right now, students aren't. And we have some robust conversations set up during our instructional leadership team meeting at the end of November to prepare schools to have those conversations moving forward to looking at our school improvement planning meetings in January and February.
So in acceleration readiness, we no longer get extra points for teaching for algebra. Is that correct?
Correct. Thank you, Ms. Kazi, for that question. That was kind of one that frustrated me quite a bit because I thought it was an indicator that really moved a lot of conversations across the state. And that was removed from the indicator because K-8 schools were no longer allowed to administer out of grade level assessments to students. And so a student with advanced course placement in 8th grade had to take the 8th grade math assessment, not the algebra or the geometry assessment. And that was a result of some federal guidelines in the A through F accountability system several years back. I'm trying to remember with the interruption, I think it might have been 4 years back.
Ms. Spear, then Mr. Holcomb.
I'm first going to comment on that. That's, I mean, it's ridiculous. It runs counter to the entire mission of education, which is to educate all students to their ability. And for our students that are testing out of algebra or 8th grade math, which is a fair number of our students in this district, which sets them up for success in high school because they're able to be a year ahead. Why on earth would we not have that? Well, anyway, I just, for anyone who's watching, this means that we are not able to be rewarded for our students who are taking higher level coursework beyond 8th grade. So it's like putting a clamp down on top of the 8th graders who are able to take algebra and test out of that so that they can take a higher level math course as a freshman in high school. Secondly, I had a question with regards to Meadows and why they didn't earn the special ed points considering the developmental program is there. Can you help me understand that?
I believe, I would have to reference the numbers, but I believe their rate just wasn't high enough.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Sorry. I believe their rate just wasn't high enough in comparison to the whole population of the school.
Oh, because it is a big school. Okay, thank you.
Yep, and I think I have it here, so I can just verify that. But I think they were a few percentage points away.
Okay, you don't need to verify it. I hadn't thought about it in the context of the whole school population. It would be a small program, relatively speaking. So
yeah, yep.
Mr. Holcomb.
Yeah, the frustration you have is with not being able to test higher. That was an issue with growth within the REACH program. This is those kids being tested that there's kids doing calculus, and before they leave 8th grade, and the tests show no growth because it can't measure it. Yeah, and it's outside of REACH. Yeah, yeah. No, it's.
MTA.
Yeah, MTA, Meadows, and they do that. And actually, as an advanced park, they'll have the same issue there as they go to algebra. I wanted to follow up on a question that Dr. Osborne asked, and that is dealing with the growth. And you said during your presentation, if a student just grows, is proficient, and they remain proficient, that's a 1 point. That's basically considered a flat growth, correct? It would help, and maybe this is an incorrect analysis, and please tell me if it is, but it would be helpful to me to see in the growth that, yes, we're doing well, we're getting a fair amount of points, but if the students were all just flat growth, in other words, they're not advancing, but we're just having the 1 year, in 1 year, you're having 1 year of growth, so that's the standard. What would that score be on the out of the 50? Do you have, and that may be an unfair question, but I don't care.
You always answer them anyway.
Mr. Holcomb, that's
You
a
can make it up
fantastic
then.
question. The scores would be better. Is my initial answer, but we typically at a district level, we have about 33% of our students in low, 33% at average, and 33% at high. And we typically try and optimize that as much as possible to move students over to middle and move students over to high. We run that report very frequently within the district with our MAP data to say what types of students are having low growth, medium growth, and high growth. How can we better serve those types of students as much as possible? What's happening in the classroom, what's happening at the grade level, to try and identify that early. And then we do it at the end of the year, going into our school improvement sessions in the summer. We get these results back a few weeks later, and they're usually pretty close to saying, here's the types of schools that are going to have high growth, and here's the types of schools that aren't. And so leading indicators are pretty good predictors of our lagging indicators. Maybe not on an individual student level, but at an aggregate level.
Yeah, and I appreciate that answer, but I apologize. My question, that wasn't really my question.
Sorry.
So you should go into politics. I mean, that would be. No, I'm trying to get an idea. For example, on Simus, it's got a 45. It's got, almost. It's only 5 points off of having a perfect score for growth. I'm trying to get a concept of how much growth if that is showing additional growth overall and on an individual student, or whether that's, and in order for me to understand sort of the level of that, I'm trying to get what would be the number for if you just had all your students doing the 1 year's growth.
Okay.
And crossed, would the growth score be 25? That would make sense to me from just straight mathematics, but that may not be, because I understand this is a statistical analysis. So I'm just trying to get an idea of, because Dr. Osborne said, we're having this phenomenal growth. I'm actually wondering, is that true, based upon these numbers?
I think I could certainly run a model to say what type of change would need to happen in each school for us to qualify for all 50 points. And I think we are having great growth on the state assessment in comparison to other systems across the state. But I do think that we should celebrate that concern, but also come in prepared that there's going to be quite a bit of work to do this year to have more kids scoring at average growth and more kids scoring at high growth. And I don't have a number. I'm sorry. That's too complicated of a number to run in my head right now to say.
So I win the award for stumping you. Finally, somebody was able to stump you.
So looking at the proficiency data, and I know with the end of year assessment, it's kind of sometimes tough to gauge, are we just missing a lot of proficiency, or is there a lot of work, between MAP and those? I know we can kind of figure that out. Because some sense the hard reality of these proficiency numbers, and I keep telling my youngest son this, the fact that you got an 89.8 doesn't make it an A. I know you're close. No one else will notice that. And do you have a sense, are we more in that middle, approaching, is it a little bit more and we should, or is this, we got a lot of work to do in some of these areas? Does that make any sense as a question?
Dr. Osborne, thank you very much for the question. One of the activities that I would like to do in addition to moving students from low to middle growth and seeing what that impact is now that we have domain level numbers where you can actually see how many questions students answered correctly, thanks to some bills that were put out that schools or the state has to give us more item level information.
You can thank me.
I was politician in me was trying to pass that along. We're starting to look at, now that we have some more reliable growth data, how many more questions would it taken us to do this and taken us to do that? Because that makes it a lot more applicable for schools to say, if every one of your kids answered one more question, here's what your proficiency score would look like. But what we do see is that we have some pockets at different schools that are really optimized, performing well. For instance, we have one grade level in our school that accounted for, I believe, or in our district, that accounted for about 20% of the perfect scores on writing. And so that's a very optimized system. That person is really delivering some great instruction, and we need to figure out what's happening there. But we have some room to grow at the top, and we certainly have some room to grow kind of in that bottom middle area. So we do have opportunities to move forward going, and it's really a school by school and oftentimes even a grade by grade conversation where a fourth grade is knocking it out of the park and a third grade is not. And sometimes that is related to consistency of staff in those positions and various other indicators happening. But I can't give you a holistic answer, but I could give you further details in the future.
Thank you.
One more quick comment, if I may. And not to point out the obvious, but we have one school that's a C, that got a C, and bottom line. And they were probably also affected by the math. We do have our REACH program at number 1, so they were probably impacted by the not being able to test at a higher level. But yeah, I just, I know Dr. Guerin's aware of this, but yeah, there are a lot of areas that obviously need work on that. But yeah, just want to point that out. And maybe maybe the REACH, not being able to test higher also affected that, and the other advanced students. But I mean, yeah, having just the one stand out like that to me is, disappointing, I guess.
I think this has been a good discussion, and I applaud the board and the administration for just kind of having open, frank discussions. And not all the good news is good, but what is good is that we come out of this with good action plans and accountability. And I think, with the superintendent's new direction for this upcoming year, as approved earlier in the agenda, I think all this kind of runs in line. And
Just real quick, it's on, I take it from part of the bottom line we discussed with this, while this is just one test, it does give us information that'll be helpful in us being able to go and target areas and go forward. That's together with the other information that we have. Is that accurate?
Mr. Holcomb, thank you for the question. Absolutely. Many of our principals attended training a few weeks ago through the Arizona Assessment Collaborative, where as a group we went through and helped principal leaders process this information to make some strategic plans based on this information. But in addition to that, we also are identifying some of these strategies that we can use to produce better results on the A through F accountability system, not focusing solely on the A through F accountability system, but realizing that there may be EL students in a particular school that also take the reading test, that also take the math test, that also might have various different demographic needs. And we say, this student is highly involved in that system. Are we serving those types of students well? If not, what are the systems that we need to put in place to target those kids? Because those kids are riddled throughout the system because they as a state, the state feels that those students need to have their needs addressed. And so we are trying to be strategic, but then also take into consideration that we do have a diverse population with each schools that do need their needs addressed. We have high performing students, middle and low performing students, and some of those strategies are different for different students.
And I also think we're so focused on this because in terms of our marketing our schools, parents will start to they'll look at the whole chain. And if they see, well, great, Heights is a school, by the time they get to number 1, that may even give them pause and they may go a different direction. So it's all, while the letter grade I think is a very imperfect mechanism, it is a tool that parents use and we need to be very mindful of it. So any other thoughts, comments? Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Pawlikowski. All right, now on to the next agenda item. Update administrator evaluation instrument. Dr. Garrett.
President Osborne, members of the governing board, cabinet, and guests, I'm presenting on behalf of Dr. Lomeli a brief presentation on changes to the principal evaluation instrument. The evaluation instrument has been updated to reflect statutory requirements. As you remember, last year was a pilot of the evaluation instrument, so we've added a couple of components. Tonight, I will share a brief overview and really also share Administrator Evaluation Committee recommendations. Dr. Lomeli met with this committee again, and they have come to an agreement on these recommendations. So this is ARS 15341 requirements for a principal evaluation system. It needs to have 20 to 33% of the evaluation outcomes be based on academic progress for students. It needs to include 4 performance classifications, and we selected highly effective, effective, developing, and ineffective. We have to describe the formula used to determine the evaluation outcome and the method used to evaluate. So if you look at the next slide, the committee recommendation includes the formula to determine the evaluation score and the 4 performance classifications. So 60% of the score is based on the rubric in goal area 1, 2, 3, and 4. And last year we did have the rubric. That's what we used. We added a goal score, so a principal or administrator can create their own individual or personal goals separate from the rubric, such as I want to gain professional development in Tier 1 instruction, or I want to work on communication strategies with my community. So it can be something specific. The student performance score, we've decided to have 20% is our recommendation for student performance achievement. And then you can see the overall score performance classification for if an administrator is highly effective, effective, developing, or ineffective. The next slide is an example of the rubric, including indicators for each performance classification. So you can see that the goal, the principal proactively seeks and acts on feedback, reflects on personal growth, seeks development opportunities, and then what that would look like if the principal was highly effective in this area, effective, developing, or ineffective. So we use the rubric for goal development and strategy that I meet with, Ms. Marshall and I meet with each principal in the fall, and we will use the rubric to develop where they fall on the overall score or performance classification using the areas of the rubric, the goal score, and the student performance score. So what is different is adding the goal component and the student performance component, and which is required by statute. So those are the changes. So it was, we took what we were doing as a pilot and just rounded it out to a full evaluation system in alignment with what is required. Any questions?
Thoughtfully done. And this is I
am seeking approval.
So can I get a motion on this item?
I move that we approve changes to the administrator evaluation instrument as presented.
Ms. Kazi with the Ms. Spear with the motion? Do I have a second?
I'll be the seconder
Ms.
today.
Gresham with the second. Please vote. Alrighty.
And you can all tell Dr. Lomeli I did an excellent job with her slides. Okay, thank you.
It was a narrow vote. Okay, future meetings.
So we only have one meeting in November, one meeting in December. So time is flying while we're having fun. December 6th, we have several consent agenda items, including pay for performance, and we'll be sending you that information and board updates, and I'll also share that when we meet individually. We are expected to bring our memorandum of understanding between the Madison Center for the Arts, the foundation, and the school district to the board. So that's very exciting. Thank you, Ms. Garvey. Ms. Garvey will also provide a bond update, and before the board meeting starts, Ms. Garvey will present a public hearing on any district budget revisions. So she will be, it will be a Ms. Garvey meeting, and we really appreciate that. We will have second reads on the board policies that we've had this evening. And we will also have the district budget revision based on what we covered in the public hearing as an action item. Then all of a sudden we'll already be at January 10th, and that will be our board organizational meeting. So it is unbelievable how time is moving so quickly.
I think that's happy hour for me. Quick question on the December meeting, going back up to the top. The 2022-2023 budget revisions, is this where we're going to have a discussion about some of that additional money and how we want to invest it, or is this more a small modification? I mean, is this going to be a more robust discussion, or?
I'll pass it on to Ms. Garvey.
Mr. President, I believe that this will just be revising the budget to the limit. There will be an executive session that day for a little bit more talk about budget.
Okay. Perfect. Any other questions or comments?
So, and just on the December 6th, so we're going to have 4 groups of You Make a Difference and Shining Star, correct? All right, good. It's a good
It
time
will
to
be a
celebrate.
busy night, and we also have talked about having an executive session to conduct a board self-evaluation and also have the board provide some input on budget advisory and interest-based negotiations. So I should have mentioned that as well.
So you're going to work me for my last meeting.
Yes, yes, we are.
Kill me. All righty. Any other comments or questions? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Holcomb and Ms. Kazi. Someone is supposed to go.
all night?
All right, the meeting is adjourned. Well, good luck.
Yes, good luck.
And good luck, Madison. All right.
Yeah.